Well, hey there. Welcome into another episode of Story World. Steve Schramm here with my boy Al. What's up, dude?
Oh, just kicking it with my boy Steven.
That's right. Steven with a V.
With
Forget it.
the
What was it that I watched recently where anyway, there was some show or movie where it was like Steven with a V. Oh, it was Moon Knight. Dude, Moon Knight. We got
I know, I gotta watch that. I
dude,
won't
it doesn't
see it.
even matter. It honestly doesn't matter if you don't care for the rest of the Marvel stuff. We have to watch, or you have to watch Moon
I
Knight.
have to
Now, if you
watch it.
wanted to invite
I
me to
will
watch
watch
it
it.
along with you, it'd be great. But for so many reasons that we'll talk about sometime, you
Cool,
need to watch Moon
absolutely.
Knight.
I will definitely
Anyway,
watch it.
so we are not talking about Moon Knight today, though. No, instead, we are talking about Space Cowboys. Space Cowboys, one of my absolute favorite movies of all time, a comedy. We watched it the other night at our movie night that we have every couple weeks, and I'll tell you, it was just as good as ever. What did you think, man?
Well, first of all, we started out with a great plate of meat, a charcuterie, meat board, which was
Yeah,
fantastic. Always a great way to start off the night, and then,
amen.
digging into the Space Cowboys, you know what? I thought it might be kind of one of those awkward, not awkward, but just, very, like, dated, late
Yeah,
90s or early thousands movies, and turned out I was very pleasantly surprised, and I thought
yeah.
that was because I was going in with the mindset of, not very expecting much, but, it turned out very well. This is the first time I've seen it, but you've seen it quite a few times, I think.
Yeah, I've seen it probably 5 or 6, maybe more than
Yeah.
that, and, to be honest, it was just as good as ever. I mean, I forgot actually. I mean, I found myself laughing, and we're gonna get to this, but probably the first 3 quarters of the movie is just very, I don't wanna say slapstick, but it is like it's comedy through and through. I mean, they take every opportunity to crack a joke or whatever, and it honestly felt good just to laugh. Not like the burdens of life don't weigh down so heavily on me that I can't have a good time. I mean, everybody has stress in their lives, but like it's rare that you're just sitting there laughing for basically hours on end. And so it was really welcome.
That's what surprised me the most about it. When I was, I guess, even into college, I I laughed at, like, dumb comedy even. I think it was just to get myself into it, but, like, the
Yeah.
last 5 or so years, I've been very picky on comedy movies, and if something doesn't make me laugh, then it's just I don't wanna watch it, and this one
Yeah.
really took me by surprise, and it was just funny. The jokes that were written,
Yeah.
the actors delivering on it, and it was just, it had like what Steve said, the first at least half of the movie, even through maybe the first like 2/3 of it, it seemed like it was every scene made you laugh about something. And I don't
Yeah.
remember laughing quite that often in a movie in a long time.
Well, yeah, same. And the actors too, um, they all the act and but I mean, except for one, all of the main characters are pretty recognizable. I The guy who
Mm,
plays Tank, I don't really know him from anything else, but the others,
mm.
Donald Sutherland, Tommy Lee Jones, and Clint Eastwood are obviously extremely recognizable names, in Hollywood. And, like, they're they're not all necessarily known, I would say, for humor, but their humor itself is recognizable and is sort of similar across the different roles that they play. And so having them bring their own style of delivering humor to the actual lines and situation that were written for this movie was really cool.
Yeah,
It's like
definitely.
one of my favorite Tommy Lee Jones movies is Man of the House, and it's a hilarious one too, and you can sort of see a similar delivery of the comedy in the 2 different characters, even though it's wildly different movies, so
Yeah, I agree. So Tank is paid by James Gardner, and the only thing I really know him from, I probably should know him from more, is the Notebook. So take that with a grain of salt,
Gotcha.
but he was in that.
So his name sounds familiar, yeah, but I did.
He's popular, and like I said, probably should know more movies that he's in, but I just don't, or I can't name them off the
Interesting.
top of my head. But yeah,
Yeah.
the comedy was just super great in it. Now, going on to kind of looking beyond the comedy, because it's a movie that perfectly, in my opinion, balances comedy and then some seriousness as well.
Yes.
So again, there'll be spoilers throughout if you don't, cover your ears or best leave the podcast. Not entirely, just this episode. If you don't want to
Right.
hear anything, but um, the the movie did an excellent way of forcing these four old guys into a situation where they are the only ones that are going to be able to go out and spit to space and solve this issue that they're having. Um, and so, and behind that, there's kind of it almost seems like a subplot at first, but then that's going to get worse and worse. Where there seems to be some drama going on between the Russians behind the scenes and one of our own, and it never. In the forefront is always the comedy, like I said, for at least the first half, and then finally, like, what's going to happen, then that gets brought to light. But I love how the writers really thought through a lot of different things because I think they knew that four old guys going to space is just silly, and everyone watching the movie
Yeah.
thinks it's silly. But when you get presented with the situation that they're in, you think, oh, that actually kind of makes sense that they're going to send these old guys up.
Yeah, they did a good job with
And
that.
it sucks you right in.
Yeah. Yeah, it does, and I mean, in fact, they even put, some of that thinking made it into the movie. In one scene, they're interviewed by Jay Leno because basically somebody leaks.
Hmm.
A photographer gets a hold of what's going on, and a journalist basically ends up leaking the story. See, they were trying to keep it from the public for numerous reasons, but one of those being that sending four old guys into space is sort of farcical, really. And um, when the story leaked out, the public reaction was sort of opposite, right? They became like legends, really quickly. They were stars. And it's sort of like the situation itself, yeah, it became more real, more believable. Like, yeah, I could actually see this happening. I mean, it does sound crazy, but I could see it happening. There's crazier things that happen in this
Absolutely.
world.
Like, kinda in my little, note here that I have, kinda like in Armageddon where they teach, diggers to become astronauts rather than
That's
astronauts to become
right.
diggers.
You
So,
can
like,
see, yeah.
now
I
that's a
mean,
great movie, people that's one of the things where you look past it. It's like, "Ah, that's kinda weird, but whatever, it's a cool movie." But
yeah,
this movie decided to not go out that way. They really wanted to try to, and just because, hopefully Steve and I can keep giving everyone, application to these movies that we're watching. After all, it is homework for our podcast.
that's
Um,
right.
if you're, I'm sure that there's ways you can apply to it to marketing as well. But if you're like writing a story or coming up with something like that, if you feel like that there's some loopholes or gaps in your story that don't quite make sense and things seem kind of questionable, just think about it and you can change your story however you want to kind of force the story into where you need it to go.
Yeah.
You're the author of it, whether it's that or a song or marketing. If something doesn't seem right, it's not, oh well, it didn't work out. It's like, no, you're creating this. You can do whatever you want. So if you want that story
Yeah.
to happen and if it would be a good story, then make it happen however you need to.
Believe it or not, I actually do have a very solid, marketing application for this.
Perfect. Awesome.
I had thought about it myself before, but then I heard a podcast, just a month or 2 ago where, one of the guys that I like to listen to made this point as well, and so he helped, give what my thinking some language. And basically what you could do, because, of course, storytelling is a huge part of marketing, stories by themselves don't necessarily have a natural direction where they're leading. Some of them do, but not always. So the point is, you can, just exactly as you were saying, you can craft a story a certain way in order to make a
Mm.
particular point. In fact, and this is a tangent that we won't go down, but I'll just say that there's some evidence that the biblical writers even did this. And the easiest example of this is you have four gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Many of them tell the same story, but with minor variations that are specific to not only the way they tell stories, but also the points that they want to make. Well, in marketing, um, what you can and should do as you're telling stories to increase your marketing efforts and increase your sales numbers and things like that is you can actually manipulate not the facts of the story. You want to keep that right, but manipulate the lessons and the direction of the story for the audience that you're teaching. So for example, in my world, there are two main audiences that I serve. One is the people who need to buy a website from me. And then the other audience is other website designers who want to learn the unique way that I sell websites, which is through subscription services, subscription website design. And so I'll use a lot of the same stories. I've got this one story that I tell. I call it the pastor porn story. It's easy to remember that way. And the truth of the story in general is that early on when we were designing websites, there was a pastor's website that we built and it got hacked and it started redirecting to a porn site. Okay.
Not
That's
good.
the story. Okay. Yeah. Right. Exactly. That's the story. Now, for clients who are signing on for website services, I tell this story as a way of getting buy-in with them on the idea that, look, I don't want to just build your website and then let it sit there for you to not do anything with it. I want to maintain it over the long term. And so I go back and tell that story as a way of sort of raising the stakes for
Mhm.
them if they don't end up buying from me. Um,
That's good.
but when I'm talking to web designers and I want to sell them into a course or into a mentorship program or something for the purpose of helping them realize how the subscription model can benefit them, I tell the same story, but I mold it around to that angle that this scenario is one of the reasons that I came to realize that subscription web design was the way to go because then I could get clients to work with me on a regular basis. So it's the same exact story, but you're molding it for a unique purpose. And so anyway, that's the marketing application.
In all of these cases, the movie, with the marketing and kind of, forcing your customer to kind of see a certain viewpoint to get them to go to that action, to that call of action, or with writing, you can force people to see things a certain way. Now, I think, and Steve would agree, the most important thing is it has to seem natural. You can people know if something's being forced that doesn't seem right. I think we've all been there, whether it's in a movie or a book or a marketing ad or anything like that. Yeah.
Pause, hold
Go
that
for
thought.
it, yeah.
The worst place that this happens is when pastors borrow illustrations from, like, pastorillustrations.com, and it's, like,
Yes.
the illustration that you've heard 1,000
Yeah.
times. Sorry, anyway, that one really bugs me, so
I'm glad you got that out, Steve. That was good for you, I feel.
I really needed to vent that. I'm so sorry I interrupted you. Anyway, you can
Excellent.
finish
No,
your thought.
absolutely. No, but I think I pretty much said it all. But yeah, just test it out and see if it's natural and if it works. But
Yeah.
good stuff. Um
Yeah, 100%.
my final point on what I liked is I really liked the ending. It was just different and out there, and I think it perfectly fit the movie. So again, spoilers here, but I forget the character's name that ended up on the moon at the end.
Oh, well, was it Tank?
Right.
No, it wasn't Tank. It was, what's his name?
Hawk. Hawk
Hawk. Yeah,
Hawkins.
I kept wanting to say
Yeah.
Hank, but it's
And
Hawk.
so,
Yeah.
he ends up, for those of you who have seen it and want to be remembered, basically he, shoots the nukes out to space with him to save Earth or, other catastrophes from happening, and ends up finding himself on the moon and dies by looking at Earth. And then he was going to die from cancer anyway, or at least that's what they were pretty much assuming. And so
Yeah.
it was an out there ending, but I think the ending fit. It was just perfect for his character. He wanted to go to space, and I thought it fit very well.
Now, the big, twist of the movie is, of course, that so they go up to fix this satellite, and it turns
Yes.
out that the satellite is not, you tell like, they keep making excuses for it, the Russians do, for all these reasons why they couldn't just go out and retrieve the satellite. Basically, the scenario is the satellite's falling to Earth, and it's like they go out and, they go up and they try to fix it, but it turns out that it's actually a Cold War relic that has, obviously nuclear, missiles, that it's like, yeah, if this thing basically goes offline, it's gonna assume that there's been a disaster and we have these missiles targeted at, cities on Earth that are densely
Yeah.
populated,
Yeah.
cities in the United States specifically that are densely populated. So my question for you is, as sort of the fiction guy, what did you think of that actual twist itself?
Um, it was I thought it was good. I wouldn't necessarily really call it a full twist because you kind of you expected something to happen like that. I kind of thought that when they
Gotcha.
got up there, it would be I didn't know it would necessarily have those specific nukes on board, but I knew it had something to do with either nukes left over from the Cold War or something like that. But
Gotcha.
it didn't lessen though the impact of, oh wow, like this is serious now. Like I was like, okay, what are they gonna do? Like, are they gonna
Well, so
disable it? Are they gonna
what would you call that? See, I would think of that as a twist. Is that really not that's not really a twist, that's just
I would say if it was anything, it was very blatant foreshadowing of what was gonna happen.
gotcha. Gotcha.
That's what I would call it. It
Gotcha.
could be a little twist, but because the Russian general was involved the whole time and he kinda had back and forth with the NASA general guy there. You It was kind of
Gotcha.
foreshadowing what was to come. You didn't know exactly what was gonna happen, but something was going to happen.
So a twist would assume that it would be more unexpected. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's what I categorize as twist this time where you come to and you say, "Wow." Think of it like, your whodunit movies. That's kind of
Gotcha.
how
Okay.
I think of twist. I'm sure that
Okay.
it's a broad range, but that's just kinda how I view it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Cool.
great
So
movie.
what about what you didn't like with it
So
though?
the things that I didn't like really have nothing to do with like the actual plot points. It's just specific parts in there that I think I paused it a couple times and turned to you. I was like, what's going on here? So the first
Yeah.
one I have is how in the world did that aircraft did not burn up when it was coming back in the atmosphere? I mean,
Yeah.
that thing was shooting down. I don't know how many thousands of miles per hour, but it was shooting. And then not only that, but when it zoomed out, granted, these are like, models in an early thousands movie, but the thing was literally like in flames. It's like a ball of fire coming through the
Right.
atmosphere.
Right.
And then I'm like, okay, like they're gonna have to eject at some point, or like what's gonna like something's gonna happen. Are they gonna blow up and die? And then all of a sudden, it's like a minute later, the plane's intact and they're landing at the space station. And I'm like, how the heck did that work? Like, did that automatically just like the flames just disappear and now it's whole again? And so again, it didn't like damper the plot of the movie or anything. I just thought it was a very weird. I thought something bad was gonna happen, and then they just landed safely.
Well, okay. So question here, and I don't mean to insult your intelligence because you are a you are a space fan. So I just want some clarity. Like you do know that that's just what happens when you're re-entering the atmosphere, right? Like you do know that they're
Yeah,
just but they have a heat shield to to guard. Like
right.
so what are you thinking that goes beyond that?
I
Is
do
that
know that, but the situation of them coming in where everything was chaotic and hectic anyway, and
Mhm.
they were saying, it's gonna burn up, like, we need to eject now, it's gonna burn." So all of that saying,
Oh,
"Okay, it
okay.
is going to burn, it is going to
Yeah,
light up,"
yeah,
and it's like,
yeah, and
"Okay,
then it
never
just,
mind,
like,
it's
didn't
fine."
yeah,
Yeah.
never mind. I got you. Okay,
And
okay,
so
cool, cool.
that was where it kinda tipped the scales for me, is it was like, "Hey, this thing's
Okay.
gonna blow up." I don't know if that was the writers trying to create a little bit of extra flair at the end to get you worked up, because it worked me up. I was like, "Okay, like, something's wrong, it's burning up." And then
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's maybe true, and maybe, like, for some reason, I feel like some things and this is maybe just wrong, I don't know, but I feel like sometimes there are places in a movie where the where people get careless, about their details and stuff, like, I thought most of the movie was really well done in their details, and so it's really odd that, like, this one little, you
that's
know
probably why it stood out. It really
Yeah,
wasn't, like I said, it didn't ruin the movie or damper it all. It was just one of those
right,
things where, to me too, I think the climax happened when they were in space. I think they could have made the
right,
return just a little bit, like, less, but, yeah, the fact that the astronauts themselves were saying that it's gonna blow up, it's gonna burn.
right, right.
Anyway,
That
I
makes
just thought it
sense.
kinda
Okay.
odd. But
Yeah, cool.
I think that kind of attests, though, to how good the actual movie was. Like, that's a pretty small thing.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I would totally agree.
Um,
Sweet.
and then I forget the general guy's name there. This was so this so the I'm just gonna call him the NASA General. I know that's not his official title, but the guy leading the
Yeah.
project, the NASA General, he so he he basically was like committed treason, I would kind of say. Like, I don't think there's really a way
Yeah,
to say it.
I do
Against the
agree.
United States, Russia, and he did it during the Cold War. And, it's found out and pretty much like I think pretty much everyone, or at least the head honchos there, the astronauts, like they know it. They know like what he did now. And then
Mhm.
all of a sudden the space shuttle lands. They return safely, except for the one guy that died on the moon. And it shows the NASA general like kind of clapping, like almost like he's had like a change of heart, like, wow, like they did it. And then like a couple people look at him and they just kind of shake their head like, oh man, like this guy, like what are you gonna do with him? And
Yeah,
then, like,
yeah.
that was it. And I think I looked at Steve, I said, "This guy, like, committed treason against the United States of America, like, with the Russians.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
what do you do with that?" So, I
Yeah,
thought so,
look at this guy.
this one is I think is much worse than the spacecraft
Yeah.
coming into the atmosphere. That was just one where I don't know if at the end, if the writer just said, "You know what? It's a long movie right by at this point. We're just gonna go with this."
Yeah, I agree. It's actually the one that even having seen the movie numerous times now, it's actually the one that as we were watching, I noticed too. I couldn't help but notice that the guy, and it's kinda like my kids. The way that the scene happened is it's kinda like when, like, one of my kids very obviously did something, and then, like, he comes out and he's like, "No," and again, he calls the other one, "No, Riker," or, "No, like, Emery," like, and it's like,
Yeah.
"No, it's very obviously was you," and so when it came to light that these were nukes up there, basically the NASA Bob Garrison was his name, Bob,
Mm, yes.
Garrison, he he steps out and he, like, he looks at the Russian dude, and he's like, "I can't believe this. What a tree." He literally talks about how it's a big
Yeah,
tree violation and this, that, and the other thing,
yeah.
and the Russian guy's like, "You bastard." I'm just like I'm just like, "Okay,
And I
I know
think
it's a funny movie anyway, but,
yeah.
like, I had the same thought, like, shouldn't this guy be epically arrested right now and,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
burned at the stake, basically?"
Yeah, it's,
So
and I'm kinda glad it's in there 'cause it just makes it so funny. Like, it just stood out
that's
so
funny.
bad.
Well, and I think, to be honest with you, I think they just, like, really went the extra mile and capitalized with it and turned it into an even funnier thing because one of the last scenes of the movie is that guy, Bob Garrison,
Mhm,
the general talking to the media, and he's like, "No, you'll never find a flyer or finer astronaut than this guy. This guy never lost confidence in them for a second. I mean, he's just totally BSing to the media, and so they must have just like rather than work out a whole thing where he gets
yeah.
arrested and all that, they must have just wanted to double down on him being a total snake, you know?
It's so weird because they really simply could have they didn't even it could have been a 10-second scene where they show, like, the
Him
other guy
getting, like,
is and,
handcuffed or
like,
something.
on the phone and then, like, "Please come in," handcuffing him, walking him off,
That's
like
right, it could have been really
and
quick.
it's like, "Okay, they got arrested." What a
But
funny
maybe
thing,
but maybe the right thing to do was to go ahead and just
and just keep it in
like,
there.
just honestly make him such a BSer, like, and just kinda I don't know,
It
maybe it
gave
was
us a
part of it.
laugh. It was good.
It did give me a laugh, that's for sure.
Another thing I'm curious about your opinion on this. I found that the kind of romantic interest between Hawk and that woman seemed to come on, like,
Mhm.
kinda quickly. It just seemed a little just odd.
Yeah. I think
I don't know if force is the word. It's just I don't know. It just seemed a little out of place.
I don't think they needed it. In other words, I think the movie would have done absolutely fine without it. I think it was there for one purpose only, and once I say this, I think he'll be like, "Oh, yeah." Um, I think they needed you to sympathize with the humanity of Hawk a little bit in order to get you to care about the fact that he was dying, that he had to stay behind on the moon and end up dying. Because before, like prior to his love interest, you never got to see the soft side of Hawk. It was always like literally fighting until they were 70 years old, still literally getting in bar fights with one another. Um, and once Hawk found out he had cancer, um, even through that, it was always very um tense between Hawk and everybody else. So
Mm,
I think they used that even with the cancer announcement and everything, Hawk just kind of brushed it off like he normally did. The only time when he was vulnerable and appeared like really human was in those scenes with her where he softened up and opened up to her and explained that love interest or whatever. And so you're like really wanting to, be on his side. By that point, and then you see
mm,
that happen, and it's like, even if the cancer had taken its course, like, you wouldn't have had to feel that in the movie because obviously the movie wasn't gonna go for another 6 to 8 months, like, unless they put some kind of crazy funeral scene at the end, which would have been really out of place.
mm.
So, I think the love interest was a device to get you to care more about him. Anyway, that's just my
Yeah.
theory. Um, it worked for me if that was the plan, so
Yeah. No, that I see that. I see it. The final point that I have is just the name is kind of interesting. It's not a complaint or a it's just Space Cowboys. I just the name just had me picturing something totally different in mind, more of like a very like out there sci-fi kind
mm.
of silly fictional thing.
Oh,
And it
yeah,
was
yeah,
much
yeah,
more
yeah,
grounded than that.
like
Almost like
racers who lived
Spaceballs or
on
something.
Mars.
Yeah, I thought it was
Right.
something. Yeah, I thought it was just gonna be something weird. So I was pleasantly
Yeah,
surprised.
I agree. I thought about that too, actually. I thought about the name. It's maybe not the best name, but it allowed them to use the NSYNC song called Space Cowboy, and that was good
That's
enough for
true.
me. So,
That's true.
good
Yes,
enough reason as far
absolutely.
as I'm concerned. 'Cause I love that song. But something that we've kind of touched on but haven't really like directly mentioned is just that um about 75% of the movie is straight up comedy, and then a quarter of the
Yes.
movie is just it's pretty tense. But overall, it's another one of these that just like it's just a really good movie. Like
Mhm.
it's actually not
It's a good
bad.
movie.
You know?
It's not
Yeah.
one of those movies that's gonna get if I don't think it probably did, but get tons of awards or, like, recognition,
Nope.
but it's a movie where you watch and you think, "Oh, that's a good movie, like, I'm glad I watched it." For anyone who's
Absolutely.
just interested in just kinda seeing good humor work and mixing it in with some action, some seriousness, and some foreshadowing, and bring it all up to one conclusion, it's a good movie to watch for all that stuff.
Yeah, and so I'm looking at it here, I can't help but check out the good old, tomato meter. Believe it or not, the critics rated this higher than the audience. The critics rated it a 50 or a, 79%, and the audience rated it a 70 or rather a 53. And, I don't know,
That's really low.
I know, personally, I actually thought it was,
Hmm.
not bad.
And I would think
So
it'd
I'm
be
not
one of
sure.
those movies where, like, fans would like it more than critics, but this was also, like, 20 years ago, so who knows what stuff was like back then. That
Yep,
was
no,
probably still in diapers, Steve.
It says the critic consensus is, while the plot is overly clinched, the superb acting by the stars, especially the tense interactions between Clint Eastwood and Tommy Lee Jones, and the spectacular special effects, it does have good special effects, make this a
Yeah.
movie worth seeing.
It
So,
actually
anyway,
really I was thinking that it did have good special effects for being that old and probably a cheaper budget compared to other
yeah,
movies.
yo, 22 years ago. That movie is from 2000, 22 years old. It's hard to believe,
Wow,
but
that's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah, good stuff.
Awesome.
So,
Great
alright,
movie. Recommend checking it out. Now,
100%,
it is, time for might be some of yours favorite time or least favorite time, but it is our
right?
time for
It's one of
story of
my
the week.
favorites.
I
Yeah,
love this.
story of
This is
the
kind of where
week.
we just kinda
Let's
go
do it.
off on who knows where. So,
That's
I'll
awesome.
I'll go ahead and start off. So today, probably not when the podcast gets released, but, today for me, the, trailer for Oppenheimer dropped.
Yep.
And for those of you unfamiliar, he basically is credited as being the kind of the father creator of the atomic bomb. And so it's directed by Christopher Nolan. It's interesting because he's known for well, one, he's known for dealing with stuff with kind of time and how things are filmed, whether it's going back in time or forward in time or reverse in time or time within time. So he's always that's kind of his forte. And so when I found out he was doing a biopic, I mean, I figured he'd do good, but I just didn't quite know how that would fit in with his, fictional kind of sci-fi feel for his movies. But after watching the trailer, I can really picture it now. So I'm super thrilled about it. It doesn't come out until next year. Unfortunately, we have to wait a while, but really
Yeah.
excited about it. And dang, this guy has made so many incredible movies and has not won Best Picture or Best Director. And I'm like, what's going on? So I'm really hoping this one can get it for him. Like I know at least for a lot of those guys, it's not about that. It's about making good movies and getting the recognition that they want. But I would think at some point he's got to be like, man, what's going to get me an Oscar? Like, what more do I have to do? I made The Dark Knight, I made Inception, I made Interstellar, I made The Prestige. Like, what do you want me to do?
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, you sort of introduced me, to the world, so to speak, of
Yeah,
Christopher Nolan, and I just think they're fantastic movies.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
um, I too would like to see him do well with that. So, and it
definitely.
looks like he and his brother are somewhat of a team. It looks like they work together on a lot of stuff.
They
So,
work together quite a bit. Yeah. Yep.
um, anyway,
Especially early in his career, I think they did a lot of writing together. His brother wrote, I want to say the majority of some of the earlier stuff, but yeah, they work together quite often.
very good, very cool. All right. Well, for me, I've one, and then I'm gonna just sneak in another quick one. But for me, Top Gun Maverick, man.
Mm,
So I watched the original Top Gun with my mom. Probably. So mom has been a huge Top Gun fan forever. And believe it or not, I had not seen it until probably a month and a half ago. And she was over and we watched it. And I thought it was good. I wasn't overly excited by the plot, and in my opinion, so much of the movie, the original movie was like, like basically naked dudes, like half naked dudes, and I'm just like, okay, well, okay, they must have been like really excited in the '80s, like, anyway, um, and so I obviously in the original, like the plot wasn't really that interesting. The characters were where it was at, right?
Yeah.
The characters in Top Gun really get you, and so I think they just call this right like a character driven story,
Yeah.
I guess, and so it was very much that. Um, in Maverick, the new Top Gun movie, we went and saw it on Sunday, and oh man, oh man, oh man. It was absolutely phenomenal. If you haven't seen it yet, you gotta go see it. It's just as good, if not better, from the character development standpoint, except with this time, there's only one scene with half naked dudes in it
Oh,
and playing volleyball on the beach, so that was a lot better. And there is an actual plot to this movie, which is the best part. There's an actual plot and an actual mission involved, and it's actually just really, really good. And I'm not alone in saying that. I've actually watched some interviews even with actual fighter pilots, actual Top Gun fighter pilots, and they were saying a lot of the same things. Like this one's really cool because it's an actual like plot behind it with an actual mission driving it forward, and it's really cool. Furthermore, about that too is a lot of the ones that I were seeing talk about it. I would say I don't remember anybody giving an exact number, but based on what I heard, probably 85-90% of the maneuvers and the actual flight stuff going on in the movie are things that real fighter pilots actually do, and they were using real concepts, and there was real flying in the filming and just all kinds of stuff. So for lots of points for being realistic, and also just for being a really, really good movie. It's good. And I'll just, minor spoiler alert, minor one. I will
uh,
say that for those of you who've seen the original, there is some closure that will come on this one. And
and
it's really good.
excellent.
It's you had to wait 40 years for the closure, but it's here. Um, the only other thing is this week as I'm just excited because this week I launched my subscription web design course. So, for those of you who've been following along here, you may or may not know, I do website design for a living, and what we do is we sell via subscription services, and that's kind of weird for web designers. Most web designers don't do that. In fact, it's so weird that my business mentor said that I should teach other people how to do it. So I did create a course on how to do that, which you can find at steveschramm.co/swd. And here's what I'm doing. If for some reason one day this blows up and a ton of people end up watching this, and it just so happens that people who come along are web designers and you want to learn how to use subscription website design, I've got a 25% coupon for you. So you can go
Oh,
to
is that good indefinitely?
yeah, indefinitely, bro. Indefinitely. So
Yeah.
you can go to steveschramm.co/SWD. When you check out, just enter the code STORY and it will give you 25% off of the course. So anyway, I'm not exactly holding out hope that there's going to be a large percentage of our audience who would take advantage of that. But if you're out there listening and you want to learn from the ground up how to sell websites to people using subscription services, you can jump on my course and do that. So anyway, there you
Excellent.
go.
Random thing about Tom Cruise. Did you ever watch Edge of Tomorrow?
No. And I need to.
Yes. Yeah, movie
And
night.
yeah, okay, sweet, I would love to, and I'll tell you something else. I never really got into the Mission Impossible movies. I don't know if you've seen them, but I
Yeah.
feel like I should get into them and love them, but I just never have,
What
so
one thing that helps me like him, I think probably more so, is just knowing that he does all of his stunts. And so that just like when we see him doing things, it's like
Ah,
that's him doing it. Whether it's flying a plane, whether it's jumping from something, it's like that's Tom Cruise. And when I go into those, I go into them thinking this is going to be an action movie, and that's what I'm
yep,
expecting, and that's why and I enjoy it.
that's awesome. Yeah, I
Y-
need to get into those.
So there's a lot of movies that Tom Cruise been in that like Minority Report's another good one, but I, I want to say I don't know if it's an unpopular opinion or not. I don't know, but I think Edge of Tomorrow is probably my favorite Tom Cruise movie. It's so
Really?
maybe I'll change my mind after I see Maverick. Who knows? But Edge of Tomorrow was
Is that the one
yeah.
where he like keeps reliving the same thing over and over again, or something like that. Okay, yeah, I would think that.
So good. Yeah, cool. Movie night.
Movie
Uh,
night. Yeah, yeah, movie
all
night.
right. Well, we got to see a lot tonight. Got to talk about the movie. Steve Schramm insulted my intelligence, and
Yeah.
everything turned out to be very good.
Oh my gosh. Okay, we better get this train off the tracks before we derail it. Well, that would
It,
be okay. It's already off the tracks. Thanks you for listening. We are on YouTube now, so we've got episodes out there on YouTube. So go check it out.
check it out.
Like, subscribe, tell your friends about it. Tell you, hide your kids, hide your wife. We got Story World on the YouTube, and so
Ah,
we
excellent.
you need to get after it.
Excellent. Thank you,
All right.
everyone. We'll see you
Sweet.
next time.
Thanks. Later.